Hey guys, this week I'm going to show you how I made this oak bowl. Stick around. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of BS with AJ. As I said before, this week I'm going to be showing you how I made this oak bowl. Now this is a piece of oak that I cut down from a tree probably last year sometime, and it's been drying in a homemade kiln that I made for, well, pretty much ever since then actually. So it did end up developing some cracks in it, as you'll be able to see later on in the video. These cracks actually ended up being a lot deeper than I anticipated, and it gave me a lot of trouble, but I'm not one to give up. So I made it work anyway. You'll see later on in the video, and actually the thing flung in half at one point. So I went ahead and glued it all back together because, like I said, I'm not one to give up. I was making this video happen. And I was making this bowl happen too. After putting that much work into it, I don't like giving up on things like that. But anyway, before we get started making this, if you like videos like this, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and consider supporting BS with AJ on Patreon so we can do bigger and better projects for you guys. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, well here's our piece of oak right here. It's been drying for quite a while. I went ahead and found the center here, and I drilled a 3/8 hole. I drilled it just deep enough for this worm screw right here to be able to reach down and it still get gripped up against the flat part of this chuck right here, the chuck jaws right here. The first thing we're going to do now that I've got that done is going to be to take off all this bark. It's a little bit loose, so I really don't want it like flying off on me as I'm turning it, of course. I was going to try and do a live edge bowl with it, but with this big old chunk right here, there's got a big gap here. It's probably all going to come loose on me, so we'll try that with another piece later on. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get this mounted on our worm screw here, and we're going to go ahead and start turning it. Alright guys, well we had a little bit of a mishap. Our bowl kind of flung apart a little bit. We were using some dried wood and it ended up having some cracks in it. On the outside there, if you didn't see them as I was turning it before, I was filling them up with super glue and it actually worked pretty good and it looked pretty decent too. Unfortunately, the cracks whenever I started turning the inside were a little bit deeper than I anticipated on some of it, so it kind of just flung apart when I put a little bit of pressure to fix a little bit of the edge here. So anyway, we've got it glued back together now. I used wood glue for the center part here, and I went ahead and filled in all the cracks with the super glue because that looked pretty good actually. Also, I ended up making my bowl a little more shallow than I anticipated, so the wormhole screw ended up going all the way through. Not that big a deal. What I did was I went ahead and drilled out the hole with a 3/8 inch drill bit all the way through, and I took a 3/8 oak dowel rod and put down in there. So we're going to go ahead and continue on with this project and hope it stays together. Alright guys, well here's our final product. I ended up using shine juice on this to make it pretty shiny there, as you can see with the light shining off it there. But as you'll notice from the beginning of the video all the way through it, I had all kinds of trouble trying to make this bowl. Like I said in the beginning, I actually took a piece of oak that I had cut down from the log myself and put in my homemade kiln, and it's been drying for a really long time. It ended up developing some cracks in it, and those cracks were a lot deeper than I anticipated as I was turning it, so it gave me a lot of trouble. Here in the middle you'll see a little bit of the discoloration. That's because I ended up having to make this bowl a lot shallower than I anticipated because of the cracks and some other problems I ran into. So the worm hole that I had used, or the worm screw that I had used to make the bowl in the beginning to hold it on there to start turning the outside, got a little bit deep, I guess. So I ended up drilling that out and putting an oak dowel rod in the center of it. Yes, they're both oak, but no, the colors do not match at all. But that's okay. It happens. Like I said, I was going to make this bowl work one way or another. Right along here, you'll see that crack. That's actually where it flung apart. That's the crack that went all the way through there. I didn't realize it had gone that deep, but like I said, I was going to make it work one way or another. So I went ahead and just glued it right back into place, and I filled up all those cracks with CA glue. I did those off camera, and if you're going to do that, I definitely suggest doing small pieces at a time, basically. Fill it in a little bit, let it dry. Fill it in a little bit, let it dry. I tried to do the middle section here a little bit too fast, and as I started trying to sand the inside of the bowl here, it ended up breaking through the dry spot, and there was some in the center that hadn't cured yet. So make sure you do that in steps whenever you're doing that. That's a very good suggestion there. It'll save you some time, because as I was sanding, it broke through, and then it had that ring of the super glue all around here, so I had to sand that back off. But anyway, that'll save you some time there. Just do it in steps. And I was using a spray hardener to make it cure a lot faster. I suggest doing that if you're going to be doing filling in cracks like this. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this week's video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and consider supporting BS with AJ on Patreon so we can do bigger and better projects for you guys. And I'll see you next week.